And so we both have different kind of schedules for the week, but having those themes, I know these sound like a lot of rules and boundaries, but Chelsey's a big believer, like there's like freedom in the boundaries. Like when you set up these structures, it actually gives you room to grow, like a lattice on a garden. It's a structure, but it allows you to grow further and have bigger capacity. And so that's been huge.
Welcome to the Mompreneur Life Remix podcast, where you will learn how to remix your mompreneur life so that you can win at work without losing yourself in the process. Hi, my name is Martine Williams, and I am your host and CEO, your Chief Encouragement Officer. And this podcast is your one-stop shop to creating a burnout-proof life and business and elevating your clarity, confidence, and courage. Friends, it's time to say goodbye to being the yes girl and hello to creating healthy boundaries, healthy mindsets, and healthy habits. Your next breakthrough starts here. This is the Mompreneur Life Remix podcast. Let's do this. Hey friend, look, I know the summertime scaries may be coming upon you right now. Maybe the anxiety around how am I going to work my business and grow my business and stay focused on those goals while also like cherishing these moments and building memories with my family over the summer. And so I created a summer ready success guide with you in mind. And what's inside are strategies for setting and achieving your SMART summer goals, tips for prioritizing your time, managing your time effectively, and staying productive, insights on maintaining work-life balance and incorporating self-care into your routine, actionable steps for creating a personalized summer action plan, and tools and templates and resources to support your journey towards summer-ready success. So it's a step-by-step guide to help you win at work without losing at home this summer. And you want to go and grab that. So you go to martinewilliams.com/summer, martinewilliams.com/summer. Happy Thursday, friends. Podcast Thursday. Do you know what the definition of leveraged income is versus passive income? Have you ever thought to yourself, what does a family first entrepreneurial journey actually look like? And can you really make money from selling on Amazon? These are all the questions that we are going to answer today in today's podcast. And this is a first for the podcast. You actually get to hear from two guests. They are a power couple, Stephen and Chelsey Diaz. They are the founders of the Rainmaker Family, where their key focus is empowering families to achieve financial and time freedom through e-commerce, digital products, and a family-first entrepreneurial model. You are going to love this interview. They are amazing couple. I really enjoyed getting to know them, hear their story of their journey of building their business, a successful business, and now helping others do that as well. So they are ranked number 148 on the Inc.'s 5,000 list and number 2 in the category of education. They are truly reshaping online learning and proving that success in business can coexist harmoniously with a family-first approach. And y'all know I'm all for that. So without further ado, let's dive right in. Welcome back, friends, to the Mompreneur Life Remix podcast. I'm so excited for our guest today. This is actually a first for the show. I have two guests on today, two Turquoise Talk guests. So I'm really excited to welcome Stephen and Chelsey to the show. They are the founders of the Rainmaker Family. So welcome, guys. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having us. We feel honored that we're your first two guests together. So
yes.
Thank you for having us.
And we may have to have a part 1 and a part 2 because there's so much that I want to talk to you about. And so for those of you that are listening, there may be a part 1 and a part 2 because when you have two guests on, that's double the fun, double the information. So dive right in and just for those who don't know you, and I'm just getting to know you as well, tell us a little bit about your story and how you came into the business that you're in and entrepreneurship and your family and all the fun things.
Yeah, I'd love to share that. Yeah. So Stephen and Chelsey, we met in high school together. We got married super young. We were actually in the service-based industry. We were actually wedding photographers. I don't know if any of your listeners are in a similar season where we really felt like there was a ceiling to the amount of income we could make. It's like if we wanted to make more income, we had to put more time in. And I'll never forget, we lived in this tiny 1 bedroom, 1 bath apartment. And there was this like really kind of more ghetto spiral staircase, this black spiral staircase that was not up to code, not something that we probably should have been walking up, but upstairs was our office. And that was really where we grew this like wedding business. But I just remember like every single season, every single, like we called our winter season, I just would feel like the weight of the world on my shoulders. Like, when are we going to get ahead? When are we going to create more leverage in our life? When are we going to have like more finances, and really looking to the future? Like, we wanted to start a family. We wanted to grow a family, but I really felt like the lifestyle and the business model that we were in wouldn't allow that, or it would take us away from our family. And so as we were like feeling that every winter, we just decided to start trying a bunch of different things. And we lovingly call those years the spaghetti years, where you kind of like throw spaghetti up against the wall and you would see what would stick. And one year we decided to launch like a physical product, like an e-commerce product. And Stephen's kind of like, you'll find he's like definitely like the nerd in the relationship. And I would be running the wedding business and he would be up late at night, like Googling things like how to make money online, how to create more leverage in your life. And we really stumbled upon this business model called Amazon FBA, where they handle all like the customer service and all of that kind of a thing. And we threw a product up on Amazon. And it started selling, and it was like absolutely incredible. And it kind of like blew my mind of what was possible. And so we started learning more about that. And I'll never forget. So we had a winter crazy season where I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders. And then that next year during the summer, we did, as wedding professionals do, grab your plate of food and start eating as much like food as you can, while you're taking your quick little 10-minute break. And we just decide like, hey, like, let's check out our Amazon sales. Let's see how well we were doing. And we looked at each other, pulled up the app. And I'll never forget this moment where we looked at our app and we had seen that we had made more money in our Amazon business that day than photographing that wedding. And I had talked about like the weight of the world, like feeling like on my shoulders, like, when are we going to have like leverage in our life? When are we going to be able to start a family? And it was in that moment, and it was like instant. I finally, for the first time ever, felt like the weight lift. Like, oh, I can like breathe. Like, we can like start talking about what would it look like to start a family, to have more leverage in our life. And so that really took us down a path of teaching moms how to launch businesses. And now we have like the Rainmaker Family.
That's amazing. There's so much in that story of just starting without having the perfect plan. I think a lot of moms, all of us are guilty of that. We want the perfect plan, the perfect model, and you have to sometimes just start and be willing to fail, right? And be willing to do things messy, throw that spaghetti up against the wall, and just the courage that you had to do that. But then you also had that moment, a pivotal moment where you saw hope. That's kind of what I felt when you were talking, was you had this hope of a better future, a hope of a better way than what you were currently doing to meet the life that you were trying to create with building a family. So what was that like for you, Stephen, when, you're looking at that phone, you're seeing this happening? Like, what was going through your brain?
Probably like, finally, because I think when you're in those spaghetti years, right, this is where you're just like trying everything. And I think this is kind of I don't know, you hear the millionaires, right? They're like, hey, millionaires have an average of 7 streams of income, which is true. But a lot of times the truth is that they got it through one thing and then they diversified. But I think early stage entrepreneurs, and I'm so guilty of this, we kind of pride ourselves in having a lot of stuff. And so we were like, I kind of prided myself back then in like, we own 7 businesses. And it was like the wedding business, we had a photo booth business, and we had this e-commerce business, and we had this Instagram software thing. And like, it was just like a million things. And really, I know you talk a lot about burnout. We really were overextending ourselves, because what we didn't really realize at the time was all those things added more time to our plate. We weren't really outsourcing that much. And so everything was adding time and stress. And so the Amazon thing was really the first business model that we got into that looked like it had a lot of upside potential without taking more of our time. And I think that's why it felt so special at that wedding, because it was like, we're out here in Chico, California, 110-degree wedding, sweating, right? Amazon is working for us. Like, we did this work months ago to stock their warehouses with products, and now they're shipping it to the customers. And it really felt like, that we caught the mythical beast of passive income, even though I don't really believe in fully passive income. But that's why Chelsey says leverage a lot, because this was like leveraged income where it's, we did this work and now it's paying off. And it felt like, wow. I mean, I remember the next year, even because we had the Amazon business, it did about 6 figures in that first year on Amazon. And it was like, we could take on a lot less weddings the next year, and we could be about the weddings we were shooting. And so now we're shooting these like dream weddings, because it was like we didn't have to just bring on or take on every client that came knocking on the door. And it really like, it was kind of like less and less weddings every year until really the Amazon thing retired us out of the wedding industry.
Right. Right. And it was a stepping stone, right, to get you to where you are today. I'm sure you learned a lot through that businesses and all the businesses. And I would like for you to kind of define like the passive income and the leveraged income for the listeners, because I know they may have heard passive income, but I'm sure they have not heard of leveraged income in the way that you're talking about it. So can you just, for those who are listening, like define the two?
Yeah, totally. I mean, passive income is definitely a buzzword, and the dream. It's like, you imagine I'm on the beach with my laptop, money's just flowing to me. And yes, like you've probably experienced moments like that, but it's like, it doesn't happen overnight. You had to build something. We compare it to a house a lot. Like, you got to build a house, you got to put work into it, but then you can live in the house and it's fairly passive. But every once in a while, you got to replace a roof or like the AC unit. So it's not like 100% passive, right? But the construction phase is over. And so that's what we call leveraged income. Leverage is really, you imagine like a small jack that can lift up a car. Leverage income is looking for, I mean, especially for moms, like how Rainmakers really happened was we started doing Amazon and we started just getting so excited about it. When we had that moment, it was like, we need to tell everyone. And so we started telling our friends, right? Like, you tell your friends, you tell your family. So basically my mom was like, I want to learn how to do it. And so we taught my mom how to do it. She launched a couple of products on Amazon. And then it was like telling people in the wedding world industry. And it was like a friend of a friend, a friend of a friend of a friend. And it started to really grow. But when we looked at who was really having the most breakthrough with it, it was honestly moms. It was moms who were like, either working moms or they're stay-at-home moms. And they had a little bit of time. So they needed to be really effective with that time. Yeah. And so leverage time is like putting in an hour into something, but it being like 100 hours, right? That is like leverage. And so just to I guess simply break down the Amazon thing, because I'm sure your listeners have heard of it. Like, Amazon is not a new thing, right?
Right.
Amazon FBA, like, you're probably getting ads already for courses and things like this. But the reason it's such a big opportunity is Amazon kind of built an ecosystem where, they have these warehouses all over the world. They have 200 million Prime subscribers. Imagine having 200 million people paying to use your service.
Right.
And so where do all the products come to supply the demand of those customers? Amazon basically opened that up to anyone to say, anyone could put products in our warehouses and we'll handle all the shipping to the customers, all the customer support. So basically you kind of get the leverage of $1 billion company as a stay-at-home mom or a small business owner. And actually 60% of the products on Amazon are sold by small businesses. And a lot of people don't know that. They kind of hear Amazon, they're like, oh, that's the big corporate giant.
Yeah.
But really, and I don't agree with everything Amazon does or any of the leaders there, but like, they have really an abundant mindset to think like, wow, like, we can actually grow more by giving more to the people involved with like making the thing happen. And so we basically just figure out a way to find demand on Amazon and then meet the demand by putting those products on the Amazon shelves, so to say.
Yeah. I know right now the listeners' brains are just like going like crazy, trying to like, okay, what does this mean? What does this mean? So thank you so much for kind of breaking that down, because we do hear a lot about Amazon or selling on Amazon. You see people on social like, oh, I'm driving a G-Wagon and I've sold on Amazon. Like, it's an overnight success. And it's really not, like, nothing really is, right? There's always the backstory of the mess up, the things you messed up on, the things that didn't work to kind of get you to where you are today. But if there is someone who's listening and they're like, what's the first step? Like, if this is really intrigued them and they're wanting to take their next step, obviously work with you, because you're going to give them all the shortcuts, right? And give them the answers to kind of get there. But if someone's listening, what would you say that first step is to just pursue that?
I love that. I want Stephen to follow up with like a more techie version. You'll kind of see like the numbers, like getting in the nitty gritty. He's the one who jumped in first. And I was like, okay, I don't know about this Amazon thing. And then I like saw the numbers and saw how it was creating, like I said, that leverage in our life. So I'm excited for him to kind of jump into that. next. But I'd say beyond that, and I'm sure like you talk a lot about this most likely with like your listeners in your coaching group, just really thinking about like going back to the why and like really understanding like, why do I want to create more income? Why do I want more leverage in my life? Like, and really evaluating first what is working really well and what needs to change. And I think there's a lot of, business opportunities and people that want the end thing, whether it's another vacation or the dream house, or even just having an extra like $1,000 a month. Like, how amazing would that be? Yeah. But in that decision has to come a change. And oftentimes we're not willing to change. We don't want to change. Our brains, our minds. I mean, it's like really in the science of that too. Like we can be afraid of change. Our body wants to keep us comfortable and safe. So I think even before you ever start whatever business you decide to jump into, and this is a continual exercise that Stephen and I do yearly, going back to what is the why? Why are we doing this? Why do we want this lifestyle? Because that will ground you when you have like amazing mountaintop experiences, and when you hit those deep valleys that happens to anybody, regardless of whether you start a business or not. So I think that is very key in the beginning of any life decision, and that will propel you in those moments of frustration and those moments of fear when you're like, I just want to stay comfortable and run back to familiar, because we all want to do that. Yeah. So just deciding in advance. So that's what I would say to like the mamas listening, the amazing mompreneurs that are doing big things this year, having that at the center first. So that's what I would say.
No, that's so good.
I'm going to tee it up to you.
It's so good, because if you don't have that, like you'll just get stuck, and the why keeps you going, because I'm not going to be like, Amazon's the only way, you guys. Like, there are so many ways to make money on the internet in 2024. Like, for sure. Thing is choosing one, putting blinders on, and then just like letting your why power you. Like for us, it was like, we wanted to start a family, and we were traveling on Saturdays, Fridays, like 3 hours there, 3 hours back. It just was not conducive for having a family first business, and we actually had our son, and we were kind of like halfway into Amazon, halfway into Rainmakers, and still half one foot in the wedding world. And I just remember on Saturdays leaving him, and he'd just be crying in the driveway as we're driving away. And it was just like, no, I don't want that. I want to be at farmer's market. I want to be going to the park. And like, so that was our why. Like, we wanted to create a family legacy of memories and experiences for our kids. And so that's what kept us going. Like when you hit the ups and downs of entrepreneurship. So as far as like technical next steps with Amazon, I guess it comes down to probably what people are thinking right now is like, I don't have any product ideas. So like, I'm not an inventor. I'm not, I don't have like an idea list. Maybe you do. Like I had an idea list, but I'll tell you, they're all bad. And we can also tell you from experience, we have launched ideas that were like, we think this is a good idea. And it's not a good idea. Okay. So what we've learned, just speaking with wisdom now, is you want to basically look for existing demand of something. And in our program, we call it the Rainmaker method. Basically, if you imagine Amazon like a giant shopping center or like, Walmart, right? On Amazon, what people do is they go walk down digital aisles. So how they do that is, I mean, you probably know this, right? You go on Amazon, what do? You search for something. You don't just go on Amazon to hang out unless it's like Prime Day and you're just feeling spendy, right? But you go on Amazon with like intention. You're like, I need this very specific thing, right? And so you search that really specific keyword, and up pops an aisle. We call this an aisle. That's the first page of Amazon. And most people, 80% of people buy off that aisle. They don't like go walking down deeper and deeper in Amazon to page 3 or something, right? So basically what we do is we actually use a software that shows us what people are searching for. And so you can actually look at the numbers. And I think what people don't realize is how big Amazon is. Like, I know you have a lot of Etsy sellers and things like that. Like, but you can take kind of the most niche thing like that you're thinking. Like, I'm trying to think of some niche Amazon products that we've seen people launch recently, like Montessori, like counting toy for 2-year-old, right? It's like very specific search term, right? And you can look in the software and see, wow, there's 50,000 people searching that every month. And imagine 50,000 people walking down this digital aisle.
Right.
And so what we do is we look for aisles, so to say, on Amazon where there's a lot of foot traffic, a lot of people searching it every month, but there's not great products. There's 3-star products, there's 4-star products, but there's not that 5-star product. And so then what we do is we just look at the data. We're like, okay, 50,000 people, they're still buying this. So you can actually see revenue with the software. And it's like, wow, these things are still selling, even though they're bad. And we look at all the bad reviews. We improve those things. We find manufacturers. We actually have a sourcing connection that helps us get those products made. And we just improve all the things that people don't like, right? We make it better color. We improve it. We make it stronger, like whatever they're looking for. And we put that on the aisle. And then when people walk by, they see that one compared to the other ones. And now all of a sudden they're buying ours. So that's really like the Rainmaker method. It's really like you're not inventing a new product. You're going where there's existing demand and you're making a product better. You're innovating on it for that niche. And a lot of times people do find stuff that they're into, you know, because you're going to know more about it, you know, like if you're into sourdough bread baking, like you just know like all the accessories and all the things that go along with that, as opposed to someone who's just looking at the software and like, oh, sourdough, I'm going to sell that, you know? So that's really the Rainmaker method in a nutshell. So I think the first step is like releasing the idea that you need a product, like idea to be an Amazon seller. You can really do this if you're looking to create income for your family and you have a strong why, you can figure out the tech of how to do this thing.
Yeah. Thank you. That was really both answers as far as knowing your why is so important. Like you said, no matter what business you're getting into, I always like to say reasons equal results. You know, you really have to have the real compelling reason behind why you're doing the things, because you're always going to come up against an obstacle, right? But if you have a real reason, then you're going to see the opportunity that's also there and not just the obstacle. And then just thinking through that process and the freedom you just gave some people, that you don't have to have a product, like you don't have to be an inventor of a product, right? It's just knowing the market, knowing what people are already searching on Amazon and making the product even better, like you said. So thank you so much for sharing that. Hey friend, can I give you permission today? Like for real, your own permission slip. Permission to get clear, to cut out the noise, mostly the noise that is going on around in your own mind, in your own head. It's just swirling. And you're asking yourself questions like, why am I stuck? Why am I frustrated? Why am I not making progress on my goals? I want to invite you to a free clarity call with me where we're going to dive in and we're going to identify what are the 3 main issues that are keeping you stuck. Number 2, what are the mindsets around those issues that are actually keeping you from solving for those issues? It's not our skill sets, it's our mindsets that keep us stuck and hold us back. And then number 3, identifying what are your next steps. We all have a next step and we have 100% responsibility for those next steps. Your only next step right now is to go to the show notes and book your free clarity call so that we can work through this. I'm believing in you and I cannot wait to see you on our clarity call. So let's shift gears just a little bit because I know they can find out more information and I know they're probably already going to be going to your website as soon as this podcast is over, but a little bit more around what does it look like to have like that family first entrepreneur journey, you know, because I do think people see it and there may be some moms who are like, that works for them, but that could never be possible for me type of thing. Like, what does that actually look like in the day-to-day for you to have a family first entrepreneur journey?
Yeah, I love that question. I think there's really 3 things that stand out to us that have put our family first. And I think you could apply this regardless of if you have, a partner or spouse that is entrepreneurial or not. I think this is really important for any family. So the 3 things that we would do, we'll kind of like go back and forth. But I think number 1 is having what we call like a pre-planned year. And I know we're already into the new year or whenever this comes out, like it doesn't really matter. I think that this can happen and be looked at from in any standpoint. And this really came from, I feel like, a moment where Stephen and I were like, oh my gosh, like we're heading into the next year. We're going into this team meeting with our team to plan our business. And we haven't even talked about like our personal goals. And it was backwards. And we're like, we've been preaching this for a year of like, having a calendar and being on the same page, and we forgot to do it. So all to say, like, you can start over at any point, and we made that mistake. So learn from us, and basically. But really having that pre-planned calendar is looking at your calendar in advance and putting in your family events first and having almost like, what are the guidelines that you and your like partner want to have? So for instance, for Stephen and I on a practical level, like how many like date nights do we want to have throughout the year? What does that rhythm look like? What are the things that are rules around like how much travel do we want to have? We travel a lot. And I think last year we kind of came up against one month where it felt like, ooh, we were probably traveling a little too much that month. And so next year I know that we can only be away like a certain amount of weekends and really putting that in first. And you really just like color code your calendar with like family, work, and then even business launches in there so that when something comes up or a speaking engagement comes up, or it doesn't really matter what it is, you can look at your calendar and have really clear definition of like, is this 100% yes, and I'm doing it? Or is this a no? Do I need to say no to this right now? So I think pre-planned calendar, I feel like every family should do that just to be able to look at what is happening throughout our year to plan accordingly. Because it's so easy to just start saying yes to things. Yes to the friend date. Yes to the other vacation. I feel like if you're in the business world, yes to this mastermind. Yes to this trip. And then you realize that your calendar is full of yeses and you're just overwhelmed and like constantly traveling and picking the pieces back up. And there's no margin. There's no margin to breathe and to have those like coffee dates. And for us farmers markets on Saturdays, those are really important. So pre-planned calendar is really important.
I think I know the second one. I'm like trying to read her mind a little bit. So that's like looking far out, which is really important. So the day to day, I think we hear a lot of like balance, that word thrown around. And I think like, I don't know, if you look at nature, right, it doesn't really try to balance. It's just like there's seasons, right? It's just like there's day, there's night, there's winter, there's summer. And so we have really found what works for us is really theming our days. And so they've done studies on this thing called switching costs, which is when you're switching between like kind of mental modalities, like, hey, I'm mom mode, and then I got to do my taxes, and I'm shooting an Instagram reel, and then it's like all this like creative, logical, and then like emotional. It's like all these different modalities. There's actually this cost, the switching cost, and your brain actually doesn't really fully transition to that new thing. It can take 15 to 45 minutes. So if you're doing back-to-back hours of different things, especially moms with just kids running into the room like all the time. It's like a lot, you never get to those days, Martine, where you get to the end of the day and you just feel like kind of just frazzled. It's just like, I don't want to make any decisions. I'm just like done, A lot of times it's not because you did a lot, it's because you switched a lot. And so that's the switching cost kind of adding up. And so we have this saying, we say, be kind to your mind. To be kind to your mind. One of our mentors told us that. And how we do this is we theme our days. And so, Chelsey has 100% mom days where it's like no business. And then she has 100% CEO days where she's in the business. For me, I have my days themed on basically kind of the theme of the day in the business. So, I have like Mondays is kind of working in the business. Tuesdays is this content creation, talking, being on shows, doing our own podcast. Wednesdays is working on the business, kind of higher level strategy. Thursdays is all my meetings. And then Fridays is more of a personal day. And so we both have different kind of schedules for the week, but having those themes allows you I know these sound like a lot of rules and boundaries, but Chelsey's a big believer, like there's like freedom in the boundaries.
100%.
Like when you set up these structures, it actually gives you room to grow, like a lattice on a garden. It's a structure, but it allows you to grow further and have bigger capacity. And so that's been huge for our family, just having like, man, and we know each other's things. So I know like, okay, if it's a personal thing with Chelsey, I know her day for that, and I don't have to ask her. I just know like, that's her family day. That's a mom day. Let's do it then. If it's a business thing, I know it's on this day. And so it just gives us really clear kind of guidelines and freedom in that.
Yeah. So that number one was planning your year, looking at that, zooming out. And then what Stephen talked about, theming your day. We also kind of refer to that as creating your dream week. What does your dream week look like? And what is like an actual reality for you as a mompreneur? Like, I don't think most moms, I would imagine unless you're like living in Hawaii and like, have somebody bringing you like martinis on the beach. Like, I'm not sure, but that's not my reality. Like I live in Northern California. It's raining right now. So my dream week is like Stephen said, it's theming your days. It's going back to when you're looking at weeks that went really well versus weeks that didn't go so well, like what are the commonalities? What are the themes that you can take into? So if you know that meeting up with a certain friend every single week is going to be so life-giving, it's going to give you more ROI in your business and as a mom, then I would encourage you to plan that and have that in first. And then like Stephen said, those switching costs have been huge. So number one, planning your calendar. Number two, creating that dream week, theming your days. And then I think number three, which I really believe like every family really, really needs to do this, and that is having a family meeting. Once a week on Sundays in the afternoon. That's when Stephen and I do our family meetings. We have 2 little boys and they still nap. So we utilize that nap time. But that family meeting idea really came from a place we had our second son, Oliver, and I was coming back into work and I just knew I wanted to be like really intentional with our time. And I remember like coming downstairs one night after putting the baby to bed. And I just remember looking at Stephen and being like, I am so overwhelmed. Like there are so many things. There's not enough time. I don't know if you ever feel that way, Martine, where you just feel like you're pull your hair out, you know?
I think I remember you saying, it feels like everyone's screaming at me.
Everybody needs me. Can I just go to the bathroom in peace, please?
Yeah. And so Steve and I are just like, we've got to have a better system in place, because every night I felt like I was coming to Stephen with like, have you done this and done that? And there's so many things on my mind and not a place to consolidate them and to like release them and actually know that they were getting done. And so we're like, we just need to have one day a week we sit down for half an hour. You can kind of decide, and we just look ahead. We look at the next 10 days. We just say, hey, what does it look like as a family first? Again, because we're always looking at our family and our agenda that first, and then business things. And especially if we have a business launch coming up, it's like, do we have extra childcare? Like, hey, I see that there's a calendar conflict. Do we need to let this person know? And so it's really looking ahead. And that's given us so much freedom. And I know that you probably have some like creative, ultra creative people that are listening to this that are just like, their guards are going up and they're like, no, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. And being resistant. And I just want to say, like, I can relate to that. Like, I am very much a visionary and very much creative and don't like being told what to do. But I just want to say, like, having these things in place has given me so much life and allowed me to have more capacity and more margin. And I think the most important thing is to show up my best for Stephen and for our family. And I have capacity to not feel drained, to not feel like by the end of the day, like, what just happened? Like that. And that has been like the biggest ROI in all of this, is how I've showed up powerfully for my family. And I don't think if we had these systems in place, I would be like as effective or cheerful or loving or whatever word you want to choose that embodies what you want to be as a mom first. I wouldn't be able to do that if we didn't have that in place. So those would be like our 3 biggest things in creating that family first business, that family first lifestyle.
Yeah. I love that. The one word that kept coming to mind while you were talking was priority. Like, you have those systems in place because you know what your priorities are. And I think for a lot of people, they get into the business and they, like you said, there's so many good things they could be saying yes to. And so even if you're saying yes to a good thing, it may not be the right thing in the season that you're in right now with your kids. I mean, my kids are not taking naps anymore. They're 19 and 16. So don't blink, because you'll be there very, very soon. But, they don't need as much from me. And I'm actually like wanting more time with them, and they're just kind of like trying to fly. Right. But I remember when they were younger, it was working my business in the nooks and crannies of time. And so I had to have really clear priorities for what was important to get done, because you only had that certain amount of time to do that. And I didn't want to sacrifice time with my husband in the evenings or sacrifice other things because I didn't keep what was important during those time frames when they were sleeping. So that was just the word that kept coming up as you were talking. And it's all hard, right? Kids, as they grow, it's just a different kind of hard. I wish I could tell you it's going to be easier when they get to be teenagers, but it's just a different kind of hard. Just like you said, it's difficult because you're that visionary, creative person to really kind of bring some of that structure in and have those team meetings. Well, it's just as hard not to have those than it is to create them. And I think sometimes as as entrepreneurs and mompreneurs, we're like, well, it's just going to take too much time to create those systems, or it's going to take too much time to get that structure in place. And it does take time, investment into that, but the return that you're going to get and what you don't get when you don't do those things, it's still hard. It's all going to be hard. You just have to choose your hard.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Choose your hard.
Yeah, choose your hard. I say that all the time. Working out is hard, but so is, dealing with high blood pressure and, anxiety. Being married is hard, so is divorce. So, choose your hard. You're going to work on your marriage. And I kind of wanted to segue into that because you're both working together on businesses, and that can be interesting, right? I say in sometimes my husband has his own business. It's not the same one as mine. But I do call upon him a lot because he does have different strengths that I don't have. He's definitely more of the analytical strategy numbers guy. And I'm more of the relationship person. Like I'm building my business based on relationships. So how do you keep your marriage fun and exciting? And, when you're spending so much time together working on your businesses and you have littles also at home, how are you creating that time for yourself? And what do you do? What would you be your advice to those who are working together, or maybe not even working together, but how to keep that marriage strong?
Yeah. I mean, I'd say we did long distance. We met in high school and then I went off to college. We did long distance for like 5 years.
Yeah.
So we kind of overcompensated when we got married and we're like, let's start a business. Let's sit next to each other. Let's never leave each other. And so we kind of did that for a couple of years. And then we just we did butt heads a little bit. And so I think then we were like, oh, we need our own things too.
Yeah.
And so we've very much gone on a journey. But I think in the early days of our business, we just both did all the things. And so that, you just do that as an early stage entrepreneur. You just wear all the hats. But then we were kind of wearing the same hats. You do the emails and I do the emails. And then it's always their fault if the email didn't get done because no one was held responsible for it because we both do it,
Right.
The first thing, if you are working in the same business, is defining roles. And we really did that based on strengths. And so, like you said, I'm more the marketing, the nerd, the I love the numbers, the money. I love all those running the stuff, right? So that's more where I lean. Chelsey's way more relational, team building, leadership, organizational structure, and so that's where she leans. And also content, her ads will outperform my ads all day. So she's always in the ads and always in the creative, so we've really had to define that over time, and it definitely evolves. So I think it's just a constant kind of look at how can I empower your strengths? How can I empower your strengths? And how can we maybe build team around all both of our weaknesses too, And so we've really done a lot of that over the years. But I really think running a business together is one of the most it's one of the best marriage counseling kind of because it just forces you into communication. And I think it's a lot of fun. I think a lot of people kind of get religious, so to say, about oh, we have to have business time, we have to have family time, we can't talk about business. But we're very much it's you got dinner, you want to talk about your kids, or after the kids go to bed, you want to talk about your kids. It's the same thing with your business. So we find ourselves connecting a lot over the business, and that's okay. We don't have at 7 p.m. we got to talk. Well, I would say at 10 p.m. we got to stop talking about the business. We don't ramp up the mind. So there is a time cutoff. But we have a lot of freedom around that. We used to kind of feel bad about it. We shouldn't be talking about the business all the time, but we really love the business and we love what we're doing. And so it does take up a lot of conversation, but it's something we love.
Yeah. I think another thing that we've implemented is quarterly check-ins with our goals. I think sometimes you set big goals, again, personal first and then business. And then we would never look at those until the end of the year. And it'd be oh, wow, we did that thing. Or, oh, I forgot about this one. And so we have a day again in our calendar, quarterly, that we are checking in on how are those going. And it's everything from we set we call them, KPIs for the time we spend with our boys and how many, and looking really at the nitty gritty, because how can we improve? Where are we crushing it? And where is room for improvement? So I think that's huge, is just spending that extra intentional time. I think also, especially with kids and running a business, I think, I'm sure Martine, you probably know this because you're further ahead of us, but having alone time too is really good. I took a girls trip a couple weeks ago, And just like the refreshment that came out of that was incredible. And again, I love being with Stephen. We love being together. He's my best friend. We love business, but there's something about also stepping away too as solo people. So we have different things that we like doing and we support each other and like, hey, you go on that guy's trip. Like, yes, go do that. And I'm going to go on this girl's trip and having that as well. I think it's also really important and life-giving too.
Yeah, everybody that listens to me on a regular basis know I support that message, because I think there's just this hustle all the time, 24/7, 365 as an entrepreneur. And it's really one of the reasons why I started my coaching and why I started this podcast and why it's called Remix, because remixing the way we do entrepreneurship, like you don't have to lose yourself in pursuit of success. And I find a lot of moms and men do that. They lose themselves because they're on that trajectory and trying to reach that goal. And they forget like, what's fun for me. They forget the little things like listening to music while you're getting ready. That was one of mine. I was listening to podcasts and books on audio, and everything was so business related. And then I was rooming with a friend at an event, and she was listening to, like, my favorite music is 90s hip hop. And she was listening to that. And I'm like, I used to do that. Like, that used to be something fun that I did for myself. So I love that you brought that up and that you have your things for yourself, because I do think as you're being parents and you're being CEOs and entrepreneurs, it's really easy to lose your identity in that process. And, that contributes to the burnout. So one question I always do like to ask every guest is, have you experienced burnout? And if you have, how did it show itself for you? And how did you kind of work your way out of that?
Yeah, definitely in the wedding industry. We had a year we shot, I forget the number,
48.
Yeah, it was like in the 40s and for weddings. So there's like 52 a year weekends. So I was like, and wedding season is the summer. So it was like double headers. And at that point, we weren't really outsourcing a lot. Like we hadn't really learned the muscle we know now of like building team and hiring people to leverage your time better. Right. And so we just got slammed, and it was just, friends kind of just stopped. We would just, anytime you see a friend, like, oh, you're so busy. Like they would just like use that language. I see, like, you're so busy. And it was just like this, I don't know. It just, we really were hitting the wall there. And that's really what led us to starting to look for alternatives. I would say in this business, it's definitely been seasonal, where it kind of goes, like it kind of grows, and then we'll hit capacity. And then we have to kind of learn that lesson again and kind of recheck where we're at and go, okay, which of these things give me life, and do I love doing and like my best? Yes. And which of these things do I need to maybe now bring a team member on who can handle those things? We've definitely kind of, I think as you grow, you hit these like kind of levels of like, oh, that thing I could do in that last season, I can't do anymore. Right. Because these are the graces left for that for me, because I've done it so much, or it's just like not the best use of my time anymore. So we're really big into, again, like documenting what we're doing in the business, and then really bringing on team members to help support those things. So I feel like we had a guy on our podcast who he wrote a book called The 2-Week Vacation Test, which I just love the title. I haven't read the book.
Wow.
I was like, it's so good. It's like, can your business pass the 2-week vacation test? Can it run without you for 2 weeks? And so I feel like we've, probably last year, probably slightly before last year, we finally got to that point where it was like, we could take off, and we took off 2 months for our second son. And it was just like the business ran, revenue still coming through. And it was just like, it felt like, wow, we had built that thing that is an engine could run without us. And that gives you a lot of freedom. Just know, like, if you want to take off the day to day, you can, it's gonna be okay.
Yeah. Your business isn't going to burn out. It's not going to fall completely apart if you walk away, for a day or even a couple of days. And I think that's just kind of that hustle culture that's become so big, is that you have to be hustling 24/7, 365, or your business will fall apart. And that's just not true. It's just not true. What are you most excited about in your business right now, kind of as we wrap up? Like what's going on right now that you're just so pumped about?
I love that question.
Yeah. Well, so I know we kind of bounce back and forth. So we have our Amazon business, which is very leveraged, very passive. And that's not the business we're typically working on all throughout the week. That business takes about 1 hour every 2 weeks to run. So we have someone fully running it. I meet with her and just check in, basically. The business that takes the most of our time is the Rainmaker Family business, which is us teaching other families on how to do this method. And that is really where we put a lot of our time in because it's a passion. Like we love seeing people have the break that we had. And so there's just a lot of cool stuff happening in that community right now. We're doing a Mexico retreat next week. So we'll be in Mexico with like 100 other rainmakers. That's going to be awesome. But I just think there's just a lot of, I think a shift on Amazon even of just higher quality products. Like I even look at like fashion, like Chelsey would have never bought Amazon clothes, like clothes from Amazon like 5 years ago. But now it's like, man, there's some nice stuff on there. So I see like our community is really pioneering that, where we're bringing a lot of really quality products that are like well made, ethically sourced to the Amazon marketplace, and really bringing that kind of small business back to Amazon. So I'm just excited to see like pretty much every day in our community. I think last quarter we had 3 people launching a product every day in our community. And every 14 days we have a new family hit the 6-figure mark in our community. So the stories are just incredible. And I love seeing like what people come up with, because it's just like everyone puts their unique flavor on stuff. And it's just like, oh, that's so cool. Like, I didn't know someone could do that. And that's just what gets me excited.
Yeah. And I think for me, like I think about one of our students, her name's Hannah, and she recently just launched. She's a young mama, and she's always had this like creative, she's an artist, and she wanted to create. And you totally don't have to be an artist to like launch on Amazon, but she wanted to use that skill set again. And she was just telling me how like I never thought I would be consider myself like an entrepreneur starting my business. That's more my husband's side of things. Like I'm just like creative and want to be with my babies. But just the way that the business is making her come alive. I think my mission is really to just have women experience transformation, like in their finances and in their legacy, and just having more leverage in everything. And so I'm just excited to see like those students that are coming in now or listening to this podcast. It doesn't really matter. Like if you can take like one thing and apply it to your life, like I just love those stories, because as humans, like we are always changing. And how could this year, and those listening to your podcast and grab one nugget from a speaker, like how could that change your life forever? And I think about like pivotal moments in my own life where somebody said something or implemented one thing and it like changed the game. And so I always think like big picture, that ripple effect that happens from people like being willing to invest time to like listen to a podcast to like, cause they want to grow and they want to change and they want to be the best version. So I love that. I think entrepreneurship is not just about the money end result. Yes, of course that's important, but it's who you are becoming in the process. And I just like, I love those stories. So I think that's what I'm excited about. Like just as women, as like mompreneurs, as we can just like change the game for our family. I think what an exciting place and time to live in, that we can like choose a business, we can create transformation. Like I believe you can have impact inside and outside of the home. And it's not just a one or the other. Like that's just what gets me so excited about.
Yeah. Yeah. Impact, you're both having a major impact in the lives of moms and their families. And one of the things that my coach used to always say to me, that's the paycheck of the heart. It's not about the money. It's about what the money will do. And being a part of someone else's success story is that paycheck of the heart. That's just priceless. It really is. And I can see it in both of your eyes and hear it in your hearts and your souls, that's just such a really important piece of the work that you do. Is you've had this breakthrough and now you're reaching back, which is what we all should be doing, right? And bringing people forward and bringing them, and you're giving them that light maybe at the end of the tunnel where they don't see an option, and you're providing this option for them, and you're actually helping them get the results. So that's super cool. And I'm so thankful to have had y'all on the show, and we could talk for another hour because y'all are so easy to talk to. Even having both of you on was really, really awesome. So where can people connect with you? Like what's the easiest way for them to connect with you? What do you have going on that maybe they might be interested in that we could talk about?
Yeah, totally. If you're interested in the Amazon thing that's piquing your curiosity, we do have a way we call it a family freedom design session. So you can get on a call with someone on our team and take a look at what you got going on, because we want to make sure it's a good fit before you go put the blinders on and go build an Amazon business. Right. And so that link, if your listeners are interested, it's rainmakerfamily.com/mastermind. We have a mastermind program that really holds your hand through the whole process. And so that'd be the best place. Get that free family freedom design session. And then if you want to connect with us, go deeper on the family meeting type thing. We have a podcast. It's called the Rainmaker Family Show. I think it's episode 99. Goes like, if you want to hear the whole family meeting structure and implement that in your life, that's a sweet freebie on the Rainmaker Family Show.
Awesome. Well, I know we're going to put links to all of that in the show notes for everyone listening. And thank you all so much for taking the time to come on. I know they're going to take away so many great nuggets. And like you said, Chelsey, if they just take one thing away and go and implement, that's the key thing. Like, don't just leave inspired by Chelsey and Stephen, but actually take something they said today and implement that into your life or into your business so that you can see a different result. So thank you all so much for taking the time to come on.
Thanks for having us.
All right, friends. Well, I will catch you on the next episode. And until then, I'm believing in you always. Well, that's a wrap, friends. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. I really hope it met you right where you are and gave you some encouragement for your day. Could you do me the biggest favor and leave me a rating and review? Seriously, it's the best way for you to support the show. And while you're there, be sure to follow the show so you never miss an episode. Thanks again. And until next time, I am believing in you always.